Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Live United is an opportunity to share resources, valuable information about how people are giving, volunteering, and advocating in the Monadnock region. Today, I'm fortunate to have with me Sulaine Poling. Sulaine is the Executive Director of Keene Daycare Center. Welcome, Sulaine.
Thank you, Kelly.
It's so exciting to have you. You know, we all love children and love hearing about children. And Keene Daycare Center is providing such a valuable service in the area. And, you know, it's funny that it's called Keene Daycare Center because I have a feeling that you actually have people coming from a whole lot of different places in the Monadnock region.
I'm guessing over our history, we probably have hit just about every town and even into Vermont and Massachusetts as well. Yeah.
You know, it makes sense when you think about a center that's both here in Keene and people work here in Keene, so they're probably bringing their children. So tell us a little bit about how Keene Daycare Center started.
Well, let's see. We began in 1970. So what is that, 44 years, I think. And we were actually a project of the Community Outreach Program Committee of the First Baptist Church of Keene. So for the first 7, I think, years of our existence, we were housed in that church. And then in 1978, I think it was, the Cleveland School on Wood Street became our home. It was had been a public school building, and so we moved in there, and we were able to add. At the church, we had 2 classrooms of about 30 children total. We were able to add another classroom. We were now servicing between 45 and 50 children. Then the next sort of phase was about 10 years later when we built an addition so that we could add three more classrooms and have infants and toddlers. Up to that time, we had just had 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in our program. So now we have from 6 weeks old up through when children go to kindergarten. We have 90 children. We are open Monday through Friday, year-round. Actually, I think if you do the math, it's over 22,000 days of childcare that we provide per year.
Wow, and to about 90 young people each day.
Exactly.
That's amazing. You know, over that time, I'm guessing you've seen a lot of changes to how you work with children in early child care. And we know that that building that foundation in those early years is an investment that makes a difference to the lifelong learning and success of these young people. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Exactly, and that is so true. Within our program, there's a whole lot of learning that goes on, and children do learn to count, and they learn ABCs, and they can write their name and things like that. But what's really critical are these life skills that will carry children not only through school, but through their career, through their life. Things like being self-directed learners, being able to communicate, facing challenges and problem solving, and working together with others. Things like that are really so important and such a big piece of the foundation that will grow from these children into adults.
You know, it's funny because when you think about being in the workplace, those are all skills we need, decision making, problem solving,
Exactly.
ability to communicate, to be part of a team and work work independently, but also work within a team. So to start that in those early years and provide that opportunity, again, it's just foundational to the long-term success.
Yeah, you hear employers talking about not being able to find people with those skills. So it really is an important thing to start.
You're really building the cradle to career, they call it. And so let's talk about some of the types of activities that you are doing with the kids. You mentioned that there's some life skills. There's also those, counting. What do you do around the social skills?
It's a part of every minute of every day at the daycare center. It's so ingrained in everything that we do. Specifically around social and emotional health with children, we have used a program called Conscious Discipline, which is kind of an emotional intelligence program helping people children and adults really learn to respond out of sort of higher centers of your brain as opposed to reacting out of brainstem lower centers, and that helping these children learn self-control, learn how to empathize, learn how to make choices and deal with consequences and things like that are really proven to be helpful in terms of then their interactions and relationships with each other and with other adults as well.
Now, have you ever had an opportunity to track any of your young people longer term to see what happens with them later in life?
We don't do that formally, although we definitely have been in existence long enough that we have seen cycles come around again. We have a number of children who were in our program who have grown up to have children in our program. We actually, one example that I like to use right now because it's just it's right there is that we had a family, I don't know, it must have been about 15 years ago, young family, wife just out of college, starting in her career, husband still in college, young child, came to us for childcare and was not in a position to pay the full cost of care, and so we were able to provide them with a scholarship. Our United Way funds are very valuable for us in that way. All of the United Way funding goes towards scholarships to make the care affordable to parents. And fast forward 15 years, this particular mother is now the president of our board of directors. She is very involved in the United Way, also in the campaign and helpful there. And even more exciting is her daughter now is a Keene State student and is working at the daycare center and is the most wonderful, nurturing, caring, adorable person. we just love it. And so it's really, those are the kinds of things that are so exciting to see over the years.
Well, and I would say that's really a success story, to see someone go through your program and then come back to give to your program when they actually have the ability to be able to do that. And sometimes it takes us a while in our lives to get to that place.
Exactly.
It's great to hear that they're actually taking the initiative to really do that. I know there's a lot happening in the state of New Hampshire as well around early childhood and how we care for our children and what we should really be focusing on.
There is. I have been involved in a couple different groups statewide, as well as we have some local support groups for our directors that are local, but also on the state level. I have been I'm on currently because it's continuing the QRIS, the New Hampshire Quality Rating and Improvement System Development Task Force, working to create a set of standards that really impact child outcomes. We are, as we've worked on this, and it's a hard process really, because there's so many things that you think might be measurable that might make a difference, but when you look at research and really what has impact, we're trying to boil it down to the really important things, and there are things related to the learning environment, the assessments, that kind of thing, curriculum, staff credentials, training and education rise to important level. And family connections is another area that we're developing standards. So it helps programs, one, kind of establish a baseline, see where they kind of stand in this rating scale, which is still being developed. But then the other goal is to promote kind of this culture of continuous improvement. And part of the process is to create, we envision that centers would create an improvement plan and have sort of some real guidance in terms of what might be more impactful and what might make their program stronger. So that's one group, and it's a very diverse group working on this. It includes administrators from the state, it includes college professors, and includes some center directors, it includes people from Head Start, the New Hampshire Association for Education of Young Children, just a whole variety of people.
Are parents part of that?
Not yet. But how to, the whole part of the point of this is to help parents understand what quality early learning looks like so that they can make better choices for their children and kind of have influence in terms of the programs that their children participate in. So they're definitely, the intent is to include them as things progress. And also just because those partnerships with parents and programs staff are so important. But as far as developing the standards, there are not parents, not specifically a representation of parents on that committee.
Although
That's a
you're
good question.
probably
we have people who are
probably
parents.
all
Yes,
parents.
exactly. Exactly.
That's the way it often happens, that you're not necessarily representing that target group, but you're usually a parent yourself.
Right.
Now, I know that you mentioned the credentialing of staff, and it's so fascinating to me because we think about that this is building the foundation. It's really an investment in our young people, and that credentialing piece is just so important for the professional staff. And it's nice to see attention paid to that right now. It is one of the probably very underpaid fields. You know, most folks have to go through at least an associate's degree, I know, level to really, and most of them a bachelor's or above degree to go into this field. So, they're probably riding more on their passion and dedication to our young children than they certainly are on the paycheck. So it's nice to hear some attention's being paid to that.
There's actually an interesting statistic I read recently that if you lump all the professions that have a similar education requirement, of course, childcare is the lowest paid of that group, unfortunately. Yeah. So you're right. The passion and the love and the
and the dedication, but it would be nice to see this tackled, and I think that it's beginning to happen here in the state. I know up in Cohasset County, they have put a real focus, and they're working with Plymouth State on a whole initiative where students are actually scholarshiped into the college to become early childhood professionals, but they return home to the North Country to actually provide service. But they are receiving good scholarships, and that's really an attempt to build that professionalism in the quality of care that's out there. So exciting to see initiatives like that happening, and we have a lot of good stuff happening here in the Monadnock region around it. The Impact Monadnock Group is working on this as an investment and came out with the investment report. So I know they're working with an organization called Spark New Hampshire. So could you share with the audience a little about Spark, because it's probably a new term here in the region.
That's another one of the very exciting initiatives in our state. Spark is a governor-appointed advisory council for early childhood, and they have a really dynamic director, and now they have formed a whole collection of committees that are working on various aspects and issues related to early development. I brought with me a brochure that is related to a kind of a framework, a presentation that they have adopted for statewide, and it talks about the children as the bedrock of the Granite State. And so if I can I read a little bit from this, because they say it so well. They say it better than I can, and it really kind of talks about first what is developing in young children. This brain architecture, you mentioned a little bit about that. Like a house, the brain is built from the bottom up. Early experiences set the foundation for the architecture of the maturing brain, establishing a sturdy, ideally, or a fragile base for all the learning, health, and behavior that follows. So how does this develop? And they talk about serve and return relationships. The key to forming strong brain architecture is the serve and return relationships young children have with supportive adults in their lives. When children reach out for connections and communications with adults, and adults reciprocate, this back and forth process continues, literally wiring the brain with the connections needed for healthy development. So what derails this development? Toxic stress. Unlike mild, short-lived stress that can be good for growth. Certain types of stress can weaken the brain's architecture. Experiences such as abuse, neglect, or exposure to violence can cause toxic stress responses in the brain with lifelong consequences in health, learning, and behavior. So what's the solution? And they talk about innovation in the early years. When we create strong foundations for the brain's future growth, invest in early experiences that maximize these serve and return interactions, and reduce toxic stress, we are building the kind of system that makes sure all of New Hampshire's children and their families are healthy, learning, and thriving now and in the future. And that's really our big goal for all children.
And, you know, that's a great message, because we're up at the state level with that message happening about building this bedrock and foundation. And then we have great work going on here in the Monadnock region, really trying to address this, partially because the needs assessment that was done a couple of years ago identified that we had a little bit higher rate of child neglect and abuse here in the Monadnock region. And I think people may be surprised by that. When you talk about that toxic stress, we have kids that are in that situation and need these resources, such as the Keene Daycare Center and many of the other centers here in the Monadnock region that are providing this invaluable service to our young people, into the future of our young people. We just had Big Brothers Big Sisters on, and I think about, you know, the gamut of service that we can provide to young people, and they come in at first grade. And you think about early childhood, and you're launching them off, and then we have these other services that can come in, such as that really continue to mentor. And really you're talking about mentoring even at a very early age, with that service and that learning piece going back and forth, but mentoring them all the way through their lives, right? Again, cradle to career, lifelong success. So tell me a little bit about some of your needs that you have here locally related to this.
Do you mind if I back up a second, though, related to what you were just talking about, and talking some about the Strengthening Families program that we're involved in? I'll definitely get to our needs, because we can talk about that. but I think the Strengthening Families kind of fits in here, because it is a program to help build resilience and help families manage stress. And it's a strength-based model where they've identified 5 protective factors that really help families handle the challenges that come their way, starting with just building parent resilience, you know, that I can do it attitude, and that ability to face a challenge and come through it stronger. Social connections is another important protective factor. Children are more at risk if their families are in isolation, and instead, if we can help families build a network, a support network, people who will listen, people who care, people who will be willing to help. That's really critical. And one of the things that we do at Keene Daycare Center is provide lots of opportunities for families to get together. You know, we'll meet, and next Saturday we're meeting at an orchard to pick apples together. Anybody can come who wants to. You know, the families come and join us. We did blueberry picking. We have a summer picnic. Very soon we'll be carving pumpkins for Pumpkin Fest. You know, all year long there are these music nights and all kinds of different things that we do to bring families together and help them make connections and learn from each other. So parent resilience, social connections, and then concrete supports in times of need. That's where United Way partner agencies are so important and so helpful in this community, so that parents do know, you know, where to turn, and we try to help them connect with the resources that they may need to help them through situations. A fourth protective factor is an understanding and a knowledge of child development, because when parents know what to expect and have appropriate expectations of their children, it helps the parents build skills and strategies to then guide their children's development in appropriate ways. And then the fifth protective factor is social and emotional competence of the child, and we kind of touched on that a little bit, but children who can handle feelings and can connect with others are a part of building strong families. So that's kind of
Yeah, no, that's an important message, because I think we oftentimes think of daycare centers servicing the children, and it's really not just about the children. It's really servicing the whole family, so that child grows up in a healthy environment, and that well-being is supported when they walk out the door
beyond
of the
exactly,
daycare center.
Exactly.
It's one thing for us to, and we know that our kids spend a good deal of their day either in those daycare centers or in a school environment, 8 to 10 hours they estimate each day. So, that's a valuable piece. But again, making that time and having that ability and feeling that confidence as a parent when you do bring your child home to continue that nurturing and continue the good work that's going on at the center.
Not only that, but it makes parents better employees. If they know their child is in a good, safe environment, our community benefits in that way too, because all of our parents are most of them are working. If not working, they're in a training program, getting some schooling, or they're looking for work. They've either just finished some training program and are ready to go out into the community and work, or they've had a job and lost it and need to find a new job, whatever that might be. This program that cares for their children allows them to be able to support their family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can speak I was a single mom for the first 10 years of my daughter's life, and when she just graduated from high school this year and went on to college, I actually wrote letters to all of her folks that were in the daycare environments for her, because I attribute much of her lifetime success to the teachers at the daycare centers all the way through the teachers at the high school level that have helped her get there. And those early years were just so important. She was over in Brattleboro and was at the Winston Prouty Center and at Pumpkin Patch, and just I couldn't have asked for more from the services she received. So we were going to talk a little bit about needs or fundraisers that you may have going on. Ways people can, if they can't give financially, there may be other ways that they can give, whether it's volunteering or donating goods.
Exactly. I start by thinking about what our really big needs are, the ones that aren't so easy to solve, things like space, things like funding, things like qualified staff. Those are kind of our our big needs. That's kind of what we're working on together here. But as far as ways people can get involved, there are a number of things. We welcome folks to share their skills with our children, to come just read stories to children, and come be in the classroom, volunteer there. We always have maintenance projects and yard work, and right now we could really benefit from someone who is good with perennial flower gardening. Maybe also some landscaping projects that we have in mind, some help with that. Volunteer opportunities would be to be a member of our board of directors. We do have fundraising projects going on, and I could ask people to look for our onion ring booth at Pumpkin Fest, because that's one of our big fundraisers, and we make the onion rings from onions, scratch all the way along, right?
Nice.
So
nice.
There are lots of opportunities.
Now, are
like
the
that.
kids involved with the Early Sprouts program at all?
Yes. We are not. We are influenced by Early Sprouts. We are not formally part of Early Sprouts, but we do have raised beds right in our playground areas, both with the infants and toddlers and with the preschoolers. And they plant the seeds, they water, they tend, they weed, they harvest, and they enjoy. And it's we're just so pleased to be able to have that opportunity for them. We provide meals for the children. We're part of the Child and Adult Care Food Program. And so we have a really strong focus on providing healthy, good, nutritious food, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, whatever. And so when children are participants in this growing process, and when they're participants in cooking, and it influences their eating. We have parents will say to us often, "I can't believe they eat that here. They won't eat that at home." So it's we're kind of trying to develop these healthy habits in children early again, so that they carry through their life.
Yeah. So you have some direct needs, and I know that one of the things that's really needed is for people to be advocates for early child care. And you talked about the standards piece. I know there's work going on at the state level around advocacy at the State House, but what can people do here locally to really advocate for quality child care and really for support for the services that are out there?
That's a good question. I think starting by really getting a good understanding of this whole importance of the early child development. There's so much interesting new brain research, and there is this bedrock presentation that if there's a group that would like to have one of us come and speak about that more, because I think that's the first part is to really understand and develop your own passion for why this is important, and then from there helping with getting involved in I know all the child care agencies and locally are happy to have people talking with them. I guess another level of connection would be to talk with legislators, because a lot of this is dependent on funding, and both at the state level and the federal level, and so anything that once people really kind of understand what an important investment this is, and how actually there's a pretty good return on the investment. I've seen figures anywhere from a 1 to 10 to 17 return on investment, which any of those is still pretty good. I mean, in terms of saving dollars further down the line. And so when people understand that, I think it helps them to advocate with people who are making decisions about funding, to realize that this is a good investment.
So opportunity to advocate, opportunity to volunteer, whether that's maybe you have a specific skill you'd like to share with kids. Do you ever teach kids how to weave or quilt or anything like that? People that are your arts and crafts folks. I'm sure that kids love arts and crafts. That reading, do you work with RSVP at all on the reading program?
We actually not RSVP. We have
Keene
KSC reads, right?
Yep.
Comes and because again the reading to young children is key in their literacy development.
And I'm not sure public you know what that is, but Keene State College students actually do a literacy program where they come in and they serve different organizations here in the Monadnock region by having college students actually mentor and read and spend time with these students on their literacy skills.
So then some other sort of concrete needs. We welcome books. That's what made me think of it. Children's books, children's clothing, anything. We actually have a free table in our entryway, and so if there are things that we can't specifically use in our program, we put them out for parents, and they can help themselves. Parents bring things in. It's just a constant trade back and forth of things on this table. Art supplies, glue, paint, markers, paper, magazines, things maybe you're cleaning out your sewing room, ribbon, yarn. I mean, we pride ourselves at being pretty good at making a little go a long way and giving another life to these things before they end up in the landfill. So we're pretty creative with this.
Well, it's great to hear, and when I think about winter's coming, I'm sure that boots, gloves, hats, warm clothes
Exactly.
Are probably real needs that you have.
Yes.
Now, when you think about the population, the young people and the families that you're serving, I know that you provide scholarships to support them. Is there a good percentage of your folks that really need that kind of assistance, that may be struggling a little bit in this economy and need that extra hand to just be able to provide that quality service?
Absolutely, yes. We typically, It's around between 60 and 70% of our families are having some kind of help with tuition, and it's expensive to care for children.
It is expensive to care for children, and I want the public to be aware that these aren't, it's not to say that people are in poverty, but there's guidelines about how you can scholarship or
Exactly.
provide that tuition assistance. So there is income guidelines. So it's
Exactly.
not like you're just randomly giving out funding to people. There's actual screening that goes
Exactly,
on.
that is true, and we start with having people access the scholarships through the state Human Services Department first, and if they qualify for that, we start there. Sometimes even qualify for that, we give them a little extra help because it's still more than a rough rule of thumb for us is 18% of a family's gross income. We try to keep the tuition below that. So we put together kind of it's sort of like college, you put together a scholarship package so that people can afford to have their children there.
It's so interesting because I'm working on another project with Healthy Monadnock 2020 and some corporate groups and other organizations out there. And we're looking at livable wage here in the Monadnock region. And one of the things that we've decided we have to factor in is childcare because it does impact families in such a significant way.
Right.
And, we're looking at both an individual livable wage because we know there's some folks that aren't families out there, but then we're also looking at what does it really mean when you do have a child to take care of or
Yes.
children to take care of.
Right.
So you're correct, it's not inexpensive.
It's a stretch.
It can be, it can be. Well worth it.
Right,
We
exactly.
both know that
Exactly.
the value is you can't even put a measure on it. So any other needs you have? It sounds like volunteers for some maintenance work around there, landscaping, gardening, reading, all kinds of opportunities for people to just come and volunteer your time. And do you have any age restrictions on people coming in to volunteer? Or
They need to volunteer, they need to be 14, I think, up till, whatever.
Whatever
no,
age.
no restriction at the other
No.
end.
And if the folks wanted to reach out to you, either to seek out service or to volunteer or to learn more about what they can advocate for, how would they do that?
They could call the center. The number is area code 603-352-2129. I have to think, not give out my home number, that's my work number. My email is Suelaine, which is spelled Suelaine _KDCC @yahoo.com. You can go to our website, but there's not really much there right now. We actually are in the process of revamping it. I have a board member who has taken that project on. So we hope to have a new improved website very soon. It's www.keenedaycarecenter.org is our site.
And it sounds like you also are looking to recruit more board members.
Absolutely, yes. We would welcome board members with a variety of skills. Energy, time is the start.
So any of you Hoffman Haas fellows out there that are going through the board training right now, this is an opportunity for you perhaps to volunteer your board time with a local organization. I'm a mentor in the Hoffman Haas, so we'll put a little plug in because there's some
excellent.
great. There's 16 people right now that are all being trained to be great board members for the different organizations here in the region
program.
through that fellowship. Anything else you want the community to know about both the daycare center or early childhood or what's going on here in the state?
I might mention, we talked about the cost of care, and we sort of have two approaches. One is to try and find other funding, but the other is to try and keep our costs, as low as possible and as affordable as we can. And there are a lot of things that we do around that. Obviously, volunteers is a big part of that, and we have connections with and partnerships and whatever help from all the colleges, Keene State students, Franklin Pierce, River Valley Community College, Keene High, Outward Bound, different people who come to the center, either performing community service or working related to their education, coming to do an internship or a whatever it's called. It's escaping me at the moment. There's also various service agencies that service groups that work with us. We're about to do the Lions Club does a vision screening every year. There are community service. We have a group right now who is working on scraping and painting the exterior of our building. I mean, things like this really help us keep our costs manageable. There's a group over in the Seacoast, the Seacoast Early Learning Alliance, that actually is a United Way over there supported group, and it has been a couple years now and really starting to gel in terms of ways that the child care centers can work together to support each other and help save on costs. Negotiate better prices for things like insurance, heating oil. We got
diapers.
We had diapers, sand, and wood chips for the outside, things like that. And so those kinds of partnerships and alliances are what really help us to try and keep the child care as affordable as we can.
And that organization, it's called CELA, is actually something that's being supported around the state by the United Ways.
Exactly.
And we're doing even more to really bring that to all corners of the state right now.
Exactly.
It's great that we actually have some services here in the Monadnock region who really moved in that direction of being proactive and thinking about how to be cost effective, and it's a great opportunity to collaborate and just, again, not only save a little bit of money, but really think about how we're using our resources we do have well.
Exactly. Make the most of all of that.
Absolutely. So you're strengthening families, you're strengthening young people, you have dedicated staff, serving 90 kids on a weekly basis. Year-round.
Yes.
Are you open even during the holidays? And
we close 7 days a year. Otherwise, we're open. We don't close for snow days. We don't close for school vacations or anything like that. But there are 7 major holidays that we close.
And then there's all those little additional things that you're providing, warm clothes, that opportunity to just socially interact, and for both the family and the young person. So people can get out there, you can volunteer, you can donate, whether it's if you can afford to donate to the United Way or directly to the Keene Daycare Center. That's an opportunity you have. If you can't, but you have supplies laying around. I was sitting here thinking, even while you were talking, my daughter just went off to college, and I have more pencils and paper and notebooks and binders left from high school than I care to count right now. So I've been trying to figure out how I was going to recycle them. So they're all sitting in big bags ready to recycle.
There you go.
So I guess I know where I'll be going with those.
Give us a call. Right, exactly.
Definitely. I get a few magazines too. So you have an opportunity to bring those kinds of things directly to the Keene Daycare Center. Would you encourage people to contact you first before bringing any items in?
It's helpful if you give us a call first, just so we can kind of know what to expect. But come by. We welcome people anytime. Come for a tour. We love to show people around our program. So yes, if you want to make sure that someone's there to actually meet with you, though, it's good if you call first, because things get busy.
Again, how would people contact you?
They could call us at 603-352-2129. My email is Suelaine, that's SUELAINE _KDCC @yahoo.com. So those are the two
And you can
best
also contact 211 here in New Hampshire and ask them how to reach the Keene Daycare Center, and they will direct you. That's a free line. That's a resource line for all kinds of assistance here in the state. You could also contact the Monadnock United Way, or you can contact, we've had people even call the TV station looking for the phone numbers. So
That's great.
and we appreciate that Cheshire TV takes that step of really connecting people to the services out in the community. So, Sulaine, any last messages, things you want to say to the community people should be thinking about when it comes to our children and our families?
Actually, what comes to mind is I have a photo in my office of 4 children who are dressed up in doctor outfits, right? Looking very, whatever. And there's a caption that says, "Remember, Johnny may be performing your bypass surgery." So it was a message about why these early years are so
important. Yes, they are. So we encourage you, public, to get involved by, either giving or volunteering or advocating for the Keene Daycare Center, for any of the services servicing our children and our families here across the Monadnock region. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I'd like to thank you, Sulaine, for all the great work that you do out there. You're making a difference in these kids' lives in such significant ways. So I'd like to thank you, audience, for joining us, and I want to remind you to please give, volunteer, advocate, live united.